President Trump needs to not just talk about Joe Biden. President Trump needs to talk about the failure of Democrat policies. So no matter who he faces in the general election, if it is somebody else, he's already started the process of hanging this stuff on the Democrats. Sanctuary cities everywhere, these aren't Republican. These are Democrat-run cities. This is what President Trump needs to be talking about. Democrat policies. Joe Biden is the puppet. The same puppeteers will be pulling the strings for whoever that he's running against come November.
All right, folks, it is Friday. Grant Stinchfield is here. He's bringing the fire. We're going to talk about all things Mitch McConnell, the RNC's new leadership, his meeting with President Trump, and Super Tuesday is next week. Grant Stinchfield is the host of the Grant Stinchfield podcast. He's on Real America's Voice. All things Grant Stinchfield can be found at grantstinchfield.com. Before we start, I want to tell you about two of our great sponsors. If you're a longtime watcher of the show, you know about my friend Leo Grillo. He rescued a Doberman years ago, named the dog Delta. Delta stands for dedication and everlasting love to animals. That was the beginning of what became Delta Rescue. DeltaRescue.org is where you can see the videos of the great work that they're doing. They provide nutrition, veterinarian care to allow animals to roam free in their sanctuary. Not a shelter. It's a no-kill, the largest no-kill sanctuary in the world. These animals can roam free. They have a home for life because of the work that Leo Grillo has done. And he needs our help. It's through our contributions, $5, $10, $100, $1,000, whatever you can spare to make sure that Delta Rescue can provide these services. But more than that, if you go on the website, deltarescue.org, you can see the videos, but you can also see the estate planning kit. And if you're an animal lover like I am, you've rescued a dog, a cat, whatever, you can go on this estate planning kit and make it part of your enduring mission so that Leo's dream continues for life and that these animals will always have a place to get the care that they need. Please go to deltarescue.org, check out that estate planning kit and see if you can help. Hey folks, during a time of crisis, are you going to be prepared? You know, when I was White House press secretary, we spent a lot of time going through contingency operations and making sure that we were ready in an emergency. The question is, will you be? You will be, though, if you go to 4patriots.com/Spicer. Get the Patriot Power Generator 2000X to make sure that when the power goes out, whether it's an hour or a day or even a month, you will be ready. You will be able to plug in your TV, your computer, your phones, your medical devices, and yes, even your refrigerator. The beautiful thing about the Patriot Power Generator 2000X is it runs off a solar panel, and that solar panel comes with it for free. So during a time of crisis, you will have the power that you need. The Patriot Power Generator is portable too. You can bring it in your house. And unlike a gas-powered one that you have to worry about filling and refilling, the Patriot Power Generator has no fumes and no noise. You can keep it in your kitchen if you wanted to power your refrigerator. You can put it in your car if a friend or a neighbor needs help. But during a crisis, during an emergency, this is what you're going to need. Get ahead of the curve. Be ready for yourself and your family by getting the Patriot Power Generator 2000X. Go to 4patriots.com/Spicer now. Grant, I am so excited to see you, although I was concerned, very concerned, it's probably more apropos that you were still going to be in mourning. I know how saddened you were to learn that Mitch McConnell was stepping down as leader. And I thought, I don't know this is going to work out. The team and I were like, hey, maybe Grant needs a few days.
Yeah.
Let's pump the brakes and send him like some flowers or something. How are you taking this? That
I think I needed a few days, but now is good. Party is tonight. We're having a giant celebration. I'm throwing a goodbye Mitch party. And so, the opposite, not mourning, celebrating. I was wondering where you were going with this.
I know. And I think for people who don't necessarily watch who maybe are listening to the audio version, like that's a joke. Like, yeah. I don't think Grant Stinchfield was leading the parade.
Yes.
Do you think it was funny? John Thune, the number 2, the whip, endorsed Trump like right after South Carolina. And they kept saying, well, now McConnell's the holdout. Do you think that this was just him saying, I don't want to deal with Trump. I don't want to do it anymore. And I'm out.
Yeah, I have no direct insight into what was going on between the McConnell team and the Trump team. But I had been reading some articles, even some obscure articles about Mitch McConnell and the Trump team were in negotiations on how to get Mitch McConnell to come out and endorse President Trump. But, what I've been saying is you don't need it. Even if he is the leader of the United States Senate, President Trump doesn't need Mitch McConnell's.
I don't know why. I'm with you. I'm like, why is the president asking for endorsements from people? Like, I got to be honest with you. South Dakota, John Thune's state, going for Donald Trump. Like it's the opposite. Thune needs Trump. Trump doesn't need Thune. And I was like, why do you care? I mean, I get it. They want to make it like 100% or something. But I was like, why do you care? You don't like Mitch McConnell. Why do you want his endorsement?
I'm not sure President Trump is actively engaged in all of that. I think he's probably got a team that's working on it. Part of the campaign is collect as many endorsements as you can. And then it gets caught up with the bigger names you get. Ultimately, I think President Trump probably, if somebody's on the fence, maybe it's a phone call from him. If you want to endorse somebody, it's always nice to be asked by the guy you're going to endorse, hey, would you endorse me? But President Trump's at another level, really. I mean, if anything, they should be asking President Trump for his pat on the back.
So here's the thing. Obviously, among the MAGA world, there's not a lot of love lost with Mitch McConnell. Okay.
There's no love lost.
Okay. Thank you for being a little bit more explicit. But here's the deal. As a guy that was in the White House, the one thing you have to say about, like, I was reading one of the stories when he announced it, right? And we would not have Justice Gorsuch without Mitch McConnell. Okay. Yeah. We would probably not have the other justices if it wasn't for Mitch McConnell. Okay. Mm-hmm. That's so you cannot like him. But there is something about, like, he remember, Obama wanted to get that seat, Garland. He wanted Garland in that seat that's from when Scalia had passed. And it was McConnell that said, no way, I'm actually going to hold this open. And I guess my point is, as much as he might have been a thorn in Trump's side, isn't there some degree of, like, he actually did get a lot done for the Trump agenda and for...
Sean, I mean, you know what? I tell my 14-year-old son, you don't get rewards for expected behavior. I mean, you or I could have been the leader of the Senate Republicans, and we would have been able to do exactly what Mitch McConnell did in those situations. This wasn't like some great strategizing, maneuvering. We're giving him a pat on the back and saying, way to go, Mitch, because we were never confident he would do it. Because he was so squishy and wishy-washy and so beholden to the establishment and the deep state that we didn't know we'd have the backbone to actually do what is right. But if you or I were in there, it would have been a no-brainer. And yet we're giving him kudos as if he deserves a trophy for getting Justice Gorsuch seated. I disagree. I think it's expected behavior, and anybody that was good would have done the same thing.
That's a fair point. I mean, I think that part of this is you're basically trying to give someone compliments for something that was their job. It's like, congratulations for doing what you were supposed to. The at least early narrative, they call it 3 Johns, which, only in Washington is that something that you want to say. Thune from South Dakota, who's the current whip. Cornyn down there in Texas, where you are, who was the former whip. And then John Barrasso of Wyoming, who is the House Republican chair. Now, do you care who replaces him? Or do you have a favorite?
None of those guys would be my choice.
Right.
I mean, none of them. So you want to talk about no love lost with the MAGA crowd. Those guys you named, really, they're establishment guys. John Cornyn, I'm in Texas. I've been in Texas 20 plus years. John Cornyn is such a disappointment. You have the backing of strong conservatives in this state. Whatever the left wants to tell you about Texas going purple, it's not. This is a deep red state, and the people that are involved in Republican politics are deep red conservatives. You have the backing. You could be a strong Ted Cruz style conservative, and yet John Cornyn isn't, because he thinks he could buy himself power in Washington, which, quite frankly, he did. He bought himself personal power in Washington by cozying up to the establishment crowd of Mitch McConnell. Thune is the same way. And so none of these guys would be my choice. I'd love to see Mike Lee or Ted Cruz or, even... I don't know, Senator Cotton. It's one of these guys.
Well, Cotton says he's considering a run. And the thing that's interesting is they all play this game where, one or the other one moves up, if you will, and then maybe Cotton, I'm like, that's great. The real power's at the top. I'm with you. Why don't we get Ron Johnson has said that he'd be,
great. I can't believe I didn't even name him. He's probably my favorite of everybody.
I just wonder, it'll be interesting to see where they end up, because I've always said this about, and I say this jokingly, obviously, but when people are thinking about being vice president or being considered, I said, I hope you've watched the Mike Pence movie, right? This is how it ended.
Right.
And so if you want to be the Senate leader post McConnell and you saw how Trump and McConnell interacted, you better be ready. I mean, to your point, if you're not happy with the MAGA crowd and the MAGA agenda, I don't know that you should put your name forward, because this is what you're going to get. And this is what, to your point, this is what is going to be expected of you.
Yeah. And especially now that President Trump has all but locked up the nomination.
Yeah.
So if somehow some other person would have won this, you maybe could have made an argument, okay, Republicans turned their backs on President, but that's not what happened. He's winning now 60, 70, 80% of the vote in all these primaries. This is a make America great again, conservative Republican Party. That's who will soon control this Republican Party. I say it's been taking us a long time to wrestle control from the Ronna McDaniel crowd. So now we got her stepping down. We got Mitch McConnell stepping down. This is all moving in the right direction to set this up, to put the Republican Party back in the hands of the people that really work for the Republican Party. And that is the grassroots activists that call themselves America First conservatives.
You mentioned Ronna McDaniel. She's stepping down March 8th. The only person that's put their name in the hat is Trump's pick, Michael Whatley, the current chairman of the North Carolina State Party. And then Laura Trump is the only person so far that is going to be, there's obviously time, but it looks like this is a fait accompli. So if you do that and then somebody steps in, let's say that it is a Ron Johnson or somebody else or Trump, because Trump's going to endorse. There's no way that he's not going to get involved in the Senate thing. It's too important. But the thing that's interesting to me is at some point, does Trump own it, right? So he's been complaining about it, and I get it. Like they have, a lot of these folks have not adhered to an America First MAGA strategy and principles, et cetera. At some point, though, if he gets his people at the RNC, if he gets somebody that he wants as Senate leader on the Republican side, does he own it?
What do you mean, does he own it?
I mean, if you get all your people in, right now he can complain and say, Mitch McConnell's not doing his job and this is what the Senate should do, because it's not his guy. Right. So he gets to, but at some point, if you get to install your people, so in the case of the RNC, he pushed for Ronna to go away.
Yes.
And he came out and said, I want Michael Whatley. I want my daughter-in-law, Laura Trump. I want Chris LaCivita to be the CEO. He's getting it.
Yes.
So at some point, what I'm asking you is, at some point, if you get everything that you want, do you then own it?
Yes.
Right? He can't turn around and say the RNC didn't do its job when it's all of his people.
He owns it. And he's happy to own it. Because do you remember that line, President Trump? It's my favorite line that he ever gave. You are going to get so tired of winning. You're going to be begging me, Mr. President, no more winning. You remember that, Sean? It was the greatest line ever. He is so confident that if he has his people around him, he will be winning. He can own it all he wants. If he has his people that is going to be in charge of the United States Senate, the leader of the Senate, his people in charge of the Republican Party, he's never had this before. So I think he's pretty confident he'll be able to start winning again. And he knows there's consequences come. If the team that you put together does not perform, there's going to be consequences for that. I have no doubt the team he puts together is going to perform and operate at a level Washington has never seen before. He's not going to do the same thing when he came in before and have all of these different factions fighting for power in the White House. You were there when some of this stuff was going on.
Yeah.
Sean, that's not going to happen again with him. I know, and I've talked to the people that are already talking about where his team is going to be and who's going to be on the team. And he has coalesced a group of men and women that he really trusts to put this team together. They're going to go in rolling in high speed from day one. And it's not going to be the infighting and power juggling like it was before.
Yeah, I don't want to get off on a tangent, but you're absolutely right. I mean, the thing is, it was a hodgepodge, and President Trump basically during the campaign did not want to talk about transitions and all that, because he was like, until we win it, I'm not wasting any time. Our focus 100% has to be to win it. I get that. The downside was we had 75 days to build a plane in midair. This time, what America First Policy Institute, we'll break this down further in the next couple of weeks, but what all these groups are doing, Heritage, et cetera, are making sure that when he starts off on day one of a second term, he has, plans and policies and people ready to go and to execute. And that is going to make such a difference because he's been there, done that. He knows who works hard and who doesn't. He knows his set of priorities because he got sold a bill of goods by a lot of folks last time. And so I think this is going to be a very, very different second term or start to a second term than there was start of the first term.
I promise you, Sean, that even when it comes to executive orders, he will have a stack of executive orders that will be pre-written before he even gets into the White House.
I agree.
That literally just has to be printed out on White House letterhead once he gets there. This is going to be a well-planned transition. And let's face it, he's been there before. He's been successful before. He knows the ins and outs now. It's not a learning curve. He knows who to trust. He knows who, and maybe more importantly, he knows who not to trust.
Yeah.
And I can't wait till it happens. I really can't.
I think that point that you just made, it can't be underscored. He also knows who not to trust, because there were so many people who went into the administration and didn't realize they were serving him, and they kept thinking they were serving themselves. And it was like pushing a rock up a hill, consistently being like, you guys realize it's not your agenda. It's his. You're appointed to implement it, not the other way around.
That's right. That's right. And I don't think we're going to see that happen again. So I'm excited about the future.
So
Go ahead.
I want to just, but going back to McConnell for one last thing, there was something that he said on the day, whatever it was, Wednesday. He said, "I'm no longer the young man sitting in the back hoping colleagues would remember my name. It's time for the next generation of leadership." And I thought to myself, okay, well, I get it. It's the Senate. That means that you could, like, the next generation of leadership is like 75.
Right. Was born in 1920. Exactly.
Right. But he didn't do himself any favor. Well, he didn't do his colleagues any favors. And that would argue to me that a Josh Hawley or, you mentioned Mike Lee, J.D. Vance, like the younger people, the Ted Cruz, maybe they're like, that was interesting that he said that. I don't know that he intended it the way I'm reading it, but I'm like, well, John Thune and John Barrasso and John Cornyn aren't exactly spring chickens. They aren't the next generation of leadership.
Right. No. And I think what we need and really need is the next generation. And all the people we mentioned would be great in leadership. You look at a guy like Mike Lee. He's not a firebrand, right? So he's not going to take things away from President Trump, just as we say we don't want his vice president taking away the spotlight from President Trump. But he's a super smart, well-schooled guy. And he may be able to coalesce the rest of the Republicans around him. But, if we go back to this John Thune and John Cornyn ideas, is that even a change from Mitch McConnell? Right. I'm not sure it is.
No, it's not. I mean, they have been his right hands for years, and I get it, but they're not expressing it either. They're not coming out and saying, listen, I've had to work with McConnell, but given my own authority, I would do X. And that's not a strong sign. It'll be really interesting. The thing that I find fascinating is that if they divide the establishment vote, then there is an easy chance that a Ron Johnson or a Mike Lee or JD or whatever could easily come right up the middle, because I think you're going to find hometown alliances, right? So, for example, Cynthia Loomis is from Wyoming. She's the other senator. She's already endorsed John Barrasso, and that's natural. That's how how they, except for Rand Paul and Mitch McConnell, most home state senators generally get along and take care of each other. Right. That being said, I think that there's a great strategic play for one of the more Trump supportive senators to run right up the middle.
Wouldn't it be nice if we had one of these older senators say, you know what, I know I'm next in line or second in line or whatever it might be, but for the good of this nation, for the good of the body of the Senate, to infuse some change, we all are going to step aside and we're going to hand the reins, as Mitch said, as Marble Mouth said, to the next generation of leaders, and step aside. I use this example. There's a Senate race going on in California. The Republicans never going to win, but Steve Garvey is the front runner for Republicans. He's in second place right now. There's a guy named Eric Early who's a fabulous MAGA candidate. He's got the real credentials to win, but he's at 4%. I said, if Eric Early really cared about California, you'd say, I'm going to step down and endorse Steve Garvey, who's a horrible candidate, by the way. He's worse than Herschel Walker. Sorry.
Grant, don't hold back. When you hold back, I can't tell what you really mean and think.
But he needs the 4% in order to get in second place. California has a jungle primary, so it's not guaranteed Republican or Democrat. You could have two Democrats in the general election. So he needs the 4%. If you really thought about the good of the country, the good of the body of the Senate, why would you say, you know what, we're stepping back. If you need us, call us, tap us on the shoulder. We've got a breadth of knowledge to help you, but we want the Ted Cruz's, the Mike Lees, the Tom Cottons, the Josh Hawleys of the world to start leading us in the next decade. And
you know who did that?
Who?
The Democrats. Think about it. Nancy Pelosi said it's time for the next generation. And then Steny Hoyer, who had been waiting since he was like 12 to take over, realized she gave basically the Mitch McConnell thing. It's time for a new generation. Well, Steny Hoyer isn't exactly, he's like 2 generations behind. And so then, and frankly, Jim Clyburn, the whip at the time, and then the assistant leader, he now says he's going. They were able to put a new breed of leadership in there, a new generation, because they all realized, let's step aside and let's let the next guys go up. I agree with you. That would have been the smart move. I just don't think that they're willing to give up power.
No.
And that's the problem, especially in the Senate. They've been waiting too long and they're, here I go. I get the bigger office. I get, a bigger car and more people to tell me that, to guide me. And I'm with you, but I don't see any scenario where that happens.
The problem with these establishment, I call them a ruling class of career politicians. It is self-interest over national interest every day. And the American people are fed up. They would be heroes if they said something like we just recommended. Hey, we're stepping aside so the younger generation can take over. Heroes. We'd forgive all of their crazy nonsense if they did something like that. But you and I know that's wishful thinking. And, unicorns don't really poop skittles, do they?
Well, I know right after the South Carolina primary, I saw on your Instagram you were down at Mar-a-Lago. Did you have a chance to chat with the president?
Yeah, real briefly. And I would just like to say this. So he came back from his South Carolina speech. I was still eating dinner at Mar-a-Lago, came in, standing ovation, and I got to chat one-on-one with him briefly. And this guy, Sean, with everything he has going on, is so upbeat. He is so inspiring to see his energy at 10 o'clock. Now, remind you, he gave a speech at CPAC. I think he might have even been in Tennessee. And then he goes to South Carolina as well this day, comes back to Mar-a-Lago, meets with people there, then sits down at his table. And he plays DJ. He has an iPad and he runs the music there and he stayed there with everybody and he took pictures. And this guy is not even fazed by this war that they are waging on him. He is strong as a stone pillar. And I'll tell you, the big smile on his face, Democrats, don't let it fool you, because he is stone cold when it comes to taking on the left. And I saw it that night and I left inspired because of it.
If you're looking to secure your financial future, there's no better place than talking to my friends at Bishop Gold Group. If you go to bishopgoldgroup.com/Sean, SEAN, for those of you who don't know how to spell it correctly, you can find out what Bishop Gold Group can do to help you with a old IRA, a 401k, or just to start your journey with precious metals and make an additional investment. I've done it. I called them. I had a conversation with them. If you want to call because you don't want to go online, dial 844-984-1616. Tell them that Sean sent you. You get a free promotional gift with that call or going online, bishopgoldgroup.com/Sean, right? This is where you can begin your journey and expand your investment portfolio to include precious metals. Like I said, I did it. You get hit up all the time. I know it. I see the commercials for this group or that group, but the folks at Bishop Gold Group are the people that I trust, the people that when I invested in precious metals, I called them. I had a discussion about what was best for me that met my needs. You can do the same. Go to bishopgoldgroup.com/Sean and begin your journey like I did with precious metals as part of your investment portfolio. When people talk about Biden's age, I've said, it's not an age issue, because I've seen 50-something-year-olds that are clueless and haven't taken care of themselves and look horrible. I've seen 90-year-olds that look sharp as a tack. Because when you look at Trump, you realize this is a guy, to your point, like, dude, the guy's up first thing in the morning. He's up late at night. He doesn't stop. It's not an energy issue with him. Biden may be 81 years old, but that's not, Trump's 77. It's not, to me, I don't want to start focusing on a number, because you've seen Biden now. He did that in that ridiculous Seth Meyers interview. He's like, oh, my opponent's basically the same age. And he's trying to use the number to obfuscate from the fact that he's just mentally and physically not there. That's different than a number.
Yeah. It totally is. And so age isn't the issue. I've always said age isn't the issue. It's energy, both mental stamina, mental acuity, and President Trump has it all. He does not remind me of an older guy by any means.
No.
I mean, he's out on the golf course. He's beating most people my age. I just turned 55. Certainly kicking my butt if I was to ever play against him on the golf course. And that's not something we need to worry about with President Trump. Certainly it is with Joe Biden. I mean, his mental decline, his physical decline, he can't even really get a breath in without struggling, much less finishing a sentence. This is why I say Joe Biden's the greatest national security risk we ever face. So I don't know if it's going to be President Trump ultimately that's running against Joe Biden. I mean, I don't think Joe Biden may be the ultimate guy that's running against President Trump. It may be somebody else, which is why I'm saying this, Sean, and this was on my podcast today. I talked about this. President Trump needs to not just talk about Joe Biden. President Trump needs to talk about the failure of Democrat policies.
Yeah.
And this is all Democrats.
Smart
open
move.
borders, all of this stuff. Start hanging it on Democrats. So no matter who he faces in the general election, if it is somebody else, he's already started the process of hanging this stuff on the Democrats.
You know, I'm glad you said that. I think that's actually a brilliant strategy. And this is not where I wanted to go because I have a couple of things that I want to really get your opinion on. But you know what I was thinking about this week, and this goes right to your point. When the IVF ruling came down, right? And just so we're clear, Mike Davis was on the show at the beginning of the week, and I said to him, "It's an Alabama ruling, right?" And he's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Does it affect any other state?" No. Okay, but every single Republican, from like little Timmy at Thomas Jefferson Middle School all the way up to Senate Majority Leader, since we're talking about that, have had to answer for it, right? Mm-hmm. What's your position on this? Because every Republican now has to answer for that ruling. 3 people have been killed or maimed or hurt by illegals coming into this country in the past week. I mean, we saw the report of the DC people. There's one in Louisiana, that young woman in Georgia. And yet no one is saying to Democrats, what your policies made this happen. We get screwed on all of these things. They never do. And to your point, message-wise, we should be saying that's theirs. They own that. There's a reason Republicans are owning everything that happens from a court in Alabama, a state court, but yet they own nothing.
Right.
When it comes to this is ridiculous. And that gets back to your point. It's not just Biden. These are Democrat policies.
They are. Every Democrat, every sanctuary city. Look at where, if it's Michelle Obama, she's from Illinois, million sanctuary cities in Illinois. You look at Gretchen Whitmer, Michigan, you got sanctuary cities there. You got sanctuary cities all across this country, including here in Texas and including Athens, Georgia, where that poor young college student was killed, that nursing student was killed. Sanctuary cities everywhere. These aren't Republican-run cities. These are Democrat-run cities. And this is what President Trump needs to be talking about. Democrat policies. Joe Biden is the puppet. The same puppeteers will be pulling the strings for whoever that he's running against come November.
Okay. So we already talked about McConnell, but this is, now that you've got me wound up on this, this is what's infuriating me about the House Republicans, right? The one thing about McCarthy, and again, we had some flaws and I'm not, but like he would be having those guys standing on the House stairs. He'd be doing another border trip. I'm like, we are sitting around. We have the greatest gift politically because it's a danger what's happening to this country. And Beth Van Dyne constantly reminds me that it's not this issue it's a sad issue. It's a horrible issue. But politically, we've been given it this opportunity to talk about the dangers of open borders because of Democrats and the dangers of fentanyl, the dangers of national security by letting terrorists in, the dangers that have occurred by trafficking women and children. And yet these guys in the House, I'm like, what are you doing? I haven't seen one major event, one big trip, and I get everything. But at some point, the focus is not where it needs to be. The message is horrible. They're not doing what it takes to capitalize on this issue and to focus the American people on the dangers of the Democrats' policies.
Yeah. Every single incident that happens can be turned back to the Democrats. And it really can. And Sean, it all leads back to the border. Okay. When you want to talk about crime in America and the explosion that's happening, you can trace that back to the border. The drug crisis, fentanyl, certainly you can trace that back to the border. When you talk about healthcare issues in this country, try going to a county hospital today and try to get into an emergency room quickly if you're an American citizen in that. It's overrun with illegal aliens at county hospitals in big cities across America. Our healthcare system is being destroyed because of that. Our big cities are being destroyed. Quality of life issues are being destroyed. You even can go to Georgia where this student was killed. I could even relate back to gun issues where you should be allowed, if you're a lawful gun owner and a non-prohibited possessor, to carry a gun on a college campus. This woman could have protected herself if she had a firearm, and at the very least, pepper spray. But Democrat policies, you can't protect yourself.
But aren't we? But this is my point, Grant. We're giving, like, I look at the guys on Capitol Hill. Mike Johnson, I get he's standing strong so far, but like, where's the PR piece of this, the messaging piece? Because I cannot get over. Like, I will talk to rank and file members, and they're like, "Yep, we're all on board." I'm like, then do something. The American people I bought into all of this IVF stuff because somehow it's Republicans' fault. And yet there's no pressure on their end on the border because we're not branding it. We're not messaging it. We're not out there. We're not selling it. And I don't understand why not. Does Johnson need more support and help and a team? But what the heck is going on? These guys have an opportunity to explain in very, very clear differences, the distinct policies that Donald Trump did and the distinct policies that Joe Biden has that have allowed this to happen, the dangers it poses to this country, and nothing. They don't even, I mean, I don't know, maybe a tweet here and there, Chip Roy is fighting hard, but that's it. Why is this, to me, should be a no-brainer, and I see nothing. Well,
Can I ask you a very simple question?
Sure.
When was the last time you actually saw something from congressional Republicans on a widespread basis that was well coordinated?
I thought the border visits were good. I thought the
border visits were good, but on a whole, congressional Republicans have been horrible at messaging. Even James Comer's, the worst presentations ever, when he gets in front of the media and he drones on for 45 minutes with homemade charts, man, it's so bad. You need to simplify it. Look what we do on our programs every day. We condense these issues into 1 or 2 minutes and you hammer it home and the American people can ingest it. They don't know how to do this. And they're not hiring the right people in order to help them do it.
I had Morgan Ortegas on the show the other day and we were talking about this and she goes, boom, 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 boom. And I was like, that's it. That's it. There's the elevator pitch. Dude.
Yes.
But these guys like overcome. It literally infuriates me because it's a gift to them right now to contrast our policies in a way that we've never been able to do it before. It's not theoretical. It's not hypothetical. It's literally, this is what it was like for 4 years. This is what it's like now. Pick. And the obvious
there
choice,
are some though. If you look at Matt Gaetz and Andy Biggs and Eli Crane and others out there that are trying to get the message out, the problem is many people don't see them because the mainstream media won't interview those people.
Yeah. Well, all right. I want to pivot though, because next Tuesday is Super Tuesday. Right? If I'm looking at my calendar here. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
coming up.
We got this weekend. Tomorrow's the Idaho caucus, which I'm sure you're excited about.
Oh,
the Michigan convention, which is when they award. Then DC, North Dakota is on Monday. And then we go, this is it. Super Tuesday, 15 states, 1 territory, 874. Let's just play this slowly. That night, Super Tuesday night, after a big whooping, does Nikki Haley drop out Tuesday night?
I mean, Sean, she has to. I don't understand how she hasn't dropped out yet, other than the fact that she's trying to make life difficult for President Trump. I don't know whether she's just a scorned woman, like a dog with a bone that will not give up on this when you're beat down and out. It's time to pack it in. She will not do it.
I get asked, you know what? I don't know about you. I literally, that's definitely in the top 3 of questions I get asked from people like, hey, I know you're into politics. And I mean, I've done races. My first race was 1994, my first paid race. I've been doing this 30 years. I cannot for the life of me tell you why she's still in this race. I mean, there's no like, oh, if this happens, the media doesn't understand. She can be the second person. There's no ribbon. There's no trophy. You don't get anything for being the last person if something were to happen to Trump, which it won't. That's not how it works. So I literally can't wrap my head around. And she's frankly, from a political future standpoint, because some people will, 2028, 2023. No, there's no 2028. There's no 2032. She has burned every bridge. What the heck? I mean, and CNN would have given you your contract. I mean, if that's what you're really going for, they probably would have given you that 3 weeks ago. I don't, for the life of me, understand what she's trying to do, unless it really is like a no labels play, which is, hey guys, I know how to do this. I can raise money. Put me on the ticket.
If it's a no labels play, that's a big problem for President Trump.
Yeah.
She will completely ruin any political stock she has. Maybe she doesn't care about that. If her only goal is a vendetta against President Trump, for what reason? I don't know why. He gave her a good position. She did a fairly good job when she was at the United Nations. I actually liked her back then. Now, I don't know. I'm at the same point I am with Ron DeSantis. I still want to say he's a great governor, but I'm so disappointed in him. I'm so disappointed in Nikki Haley. These are two people that I had somewhat respect for after all of this. If she doesn't know the labels, she's not just sinking President Trump. She will sink this nation.
Yeah.
This nation will never be the same, and you don't have to blame Joe Biden at that point. You'll blame Nikki Haley.
No, you're right, though. I think once you go no labels, that's it. I mean, you're basically saying I want to live in a gated community for the rest of my life because you will guarantee a Joe Biden. I mean, she will. That's a fact.
Yes.
And I know people will be like, oh, no. When you look at the closeness, Arizona, 10,000 votes, Wisconsin, 20,000 votes, Michigan in 2016, 10,700 votes. If you don't think that she's going to suck off that many people who would have voted for Trump or maybe sat it out, but she is the ultimate spoiler. And I think if she went down that path, it is frankly, it is still possible, obviously, that Trump could win. But I would argue that if that were to happen, that's a burn the whole, not just the House, we're talking the whole country down strategy.
The whole country. You know, my hope is that what Nikki Haley is doing is that its ego has gotten in the way. She sees she's getting Democrat votes, and maybe in her warped mind, she's saying, look, I could be the great unifier. I'm getting Koch brother money up until the other day when they said the Koch brothers aren't giving her any more money anymore. But she was raising money, and maybe she's thinking, look at me. I've got all this support from all these different people that Republicans never had support for. I have a chance. But she's just delusional with tunnel vision that doesn't see the big picture, that support is so minuscule compared to what President Trump has. You know, Sean, I know you know this because you worked for President Trump. What President Trump has created is a movement, the Make America Great Again movement. I haven't seen a movement in America since Ronald Reagan. President Trump has picked that up. Maybe Barack Obama, when he ran the first time, created somewhat of a movement, but it's not like this. People will walk over glass and hot coals together to get to President Trump and vote for him.
It was funny, after Nikki Haley, South Carolina, when the media went into culture shock, like, oh, look at how much she got. This isn't. And I'm like, wait a second, just to be clear, South Carolina was an open primary. She openly courted Democrats and independents to vote for. Politico was writing stories about how some Democrats were at her campaign event the night of the South Carolina primary, cheering that this was the time that they got to vote, that they got to vote against Trump, but they were definitely voting for Biden in the general. It's like, then yes, does Trump have a problem with Democrats? Yeah, no kidding. I mean, just the same way that Biden has one with the Republicans. But the media is so desperate to create a narrative that Trump has a problem, despite every poll in every battleground state showing that he's winning, that they're not reporting accurately on the problem that Nikki Haley is not wooing Republicans or Republican voters. She's wooing Democrats, never Trumpers, and some independents. Yeah. That's it. That's not a winning strategy. It
would be interesting, in the campaign world, Sean knows this, we call them 2R, 3R, 4Rs, who voted how many consecutive primaries. It's how you can figure out who's going to vote most likely, especially in a primary and certainly the general election. How many 2, 3, 4Rs voted for Nikki Haley in the primary? I'll bet you it was mostly Democrats, her 20% of the vote that she got, or first-time Republican voters. But I'll bet you longtime Republican voters, I bet you they didn't vote for her.
No. All right, I want to fast forward you to the general election. If you remember, and I think you do, after the 2020 election, if you shared concerns about how states conducted their election under the guise of COVID, not following rules, not following regulations, not following their state law, in the case of Pennsylvania, not following the state constitution, well, you're an election denier. You're anti-democracy. You want to end democracy as we know it. Well, I want to call your attention to a headline in The Atlantic, where Democrats are openly saying if the courts allow Trump to remain on the ballot, Grant, then they just may not certify the election.
Well, I mean, this is going down the same road that they accused Republicans of doing, but even worse.
Yeah.
Right? The courts have ruled before the election. I mean, we were trying to get courts to rule after the election. courts rule before it. Now you're not going to certify the election. Now you're literally openly trying to steal an election. I mean, all of these games, I wish people would just play by the rules. In many respects, this is Republicans' biggest problem. We're hungry to play by the rules, win fairly, win squarely. Democrats play by anything. Democrats will lie, cheat, steal, they'll spit in your face. They'll tell you to take your jacket off, and as soon as you do, they'll start punching your face as you got your jacket tied behind your arms. You know that old playground trick?
I think you've thought about this a little, haven't you?
I mean, I just can't stand the way they are willing to do anything to win. Did you see Kamala Harris this week comes out with a plan? They're going to use a federal student work program to pay students to recruit voters, okay, and sign them up. Pay students. It's a bribery plan for Democrat votes for students. And she openly talks about this.
They don't care. It's like the other day with the giveaway. We're erasing debt. It's not like it went poof. We're paying for it. Like they get to say, like I always say to folks when they ask me, how did they get away with this? It's like crime, right? So when you and I were growing up, the phrase was crime doesn't pay. And the idea was, hey, if you do something wrong, if you break the law, you will be punished. And we'd say, wow, I don't want to be punished. I don't want to go to jail. I don't want to pay a fine. I don't want to get in trouble with my parents. Now crime pays. I mean,
right.
it's hey, what's going to happen in DC? They like, hey, come on into CVS, take what you want. And it's the same thing. These guys on the left, the reason that Karine Jean-Pierre can suck as much as she does, the reason that Biden can get away with the things that they do is because the media allows them. They go, okay, sure, go for it.
Yeah, it's 100% they've got the media in their back pocket. The problem is the media now is in a dilemma because they don't know which way to go here because they know Joe Biden can't win. So I think they do. I think they know Joe Biden can't win. I think Operation Oust Joe Biden has been well underway. I think they're setting him up. You know, when he came out late at night for that speech that he just botched, I think that's them setting him up. He's going to give a State of the Union speech. I said, if that State of the Union speech is over 30 minutes, it's a setup job. Whoever is inside there is setting him up for failure so they can finally say, we got to get him out of here. That his speech that night, if I was his advisor, Mr. President, 30 minutes tops. He can't last himself an hour standing up, going through a teleprompter. But if it's longer, I see more and more times where they're setting this guy up. None of the moves they're making with him make any sense for the state that he is in.
Who's the they? Who's they?
Well, you know, I mean, I know you don't like conspiracy theories.
No,
but
I love a good conspiracy theory.
I'm a big believer that Barack Obama, Susan Rice, George Soros, and maybe they call Hillary Clinton in for some advice, that those are the people that are really calling the shots. And Barack Obama probably being at the top of the list.
They bring her along for the hot sauce is what I understand. She always has hot sauce and they love bringing her around. No, look, I get it. I think that there are enough of these guys, but I also believe that there's enough of them that their entire power, they love using him. He's a vessel. Remember, someone reminded me the other day, Barack Obama had said at one point, I would love a third term if I didn't have to actually do the work. And I think they look at him and say, oh, this dude's a vessel for us.
No, Sean, do you remember what he actually said? He said, if I could be in their ear he literally said, if I could be in their ear telling them what to say, I would love a third term. It was like a stunning admission of the guy behind the curtain. Was that Oz?
Yeah. Well, he's getting it. I mean, look at this is, and that's why I'm wondering if this has been the whole goal. Grant, I always love our conversations. Thank you for always making time for us. Obviously, people go subscribe to Grant's podcast because you get more of this on a daily basis, which I think we need more on a daily basis these days. Have a great weekend. We've got. Let me
just say this. I got to say this. You have become such a good friend. I'm honored to come on this show. I'm so grateful for our friendship. You're a good dude, man.
All right, sorry, I just got to go to
watching. I love your success.
Apologize. I'm going to Venmo right now. I'll send it as we speak. All right, brother. Have a great weekend. For all of you guys out there, I hope you have a great weekend. Thanks for tuning in. Grant never ceases to bring the hot stuff. It's always amazing with him. Continue to subscribe, share. Have a great weekend. Remember, we're going to have a big show next week. Super Tuesday is Tuesday. We're going to break it all down like no one else. Have a great weekend. Enjoy. Get some rest because we got a big week ahead of us. See you next week on the Sean Spicer Show. Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.